Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to my channel. Today's recipe is chicken pot pie. We will not be using pie crust today, but we'll be using puff pastry. You can find this at your local grocery store in the freezer aisle. So before we start the recipe, just take out your puff pastry from the freezer and just let it defrost while you are making the chicken broth. Now you will be needing around 3.5 cups of water with 4 cloves and a half of a medium-sized onion. Now it doesn't matter if the onion is thinly sliced or chopped or anything like that, so just cut it however you like and put it into the water. Now once your onions and your garlic is in the water, you're going to put your chicken. So I used around a half of a chicken. Make sure it has some bone on it because we are making chicken broth, so you need to make sure there is some bone on it. Now there's two parts to the broth. You could either put the salt in the broth, but then you will not be putting salt in the chicken pot pie filling itself, so I would recommend not to put salt at this time and just let it be. And you also put a small piece of cinnamon. Now what happens is that when you're making chicken broth, you usually get some scum on the top of the pot. It is best to remove this scum. You don't want that in your chicken pot pie. So once it's boiling, just give it a stir here and there, just so that the onion flavor and the garlic flavor kind of goes into the chicken. And just let it cook. So while it's cooking, we'll be chopping our veggies. So you'll be chopping your green beans, and your carrots. Now starting with the filling. The filling, we will need around 2 tablespoons of butter. While the butter is melting, I decided to take my chicken out of my chicken broth and basically set it to the side so it cools down a little bit, so I'm able to shred it. We will not be using the onions or the garlic in the filling, so before putting it into the pot, of course, we will try our best to sift it so you don't get any of the onions or the garlic in. Once your butter is melted, you will be putting your green beans and your carrots in. You need around 1 cup of chopped green beans and 1 cup of chopped carrots. Now if you do not want to use the fresh ingredients, you can use frozen mixed veggies. If you're using frozen mixed veggies, you'll have a mixture of green beans, carrots, corn and peas. That one, you will need around 3 cups of that mixture, and you will put it in at this time. If you're using fresh ingredients, then you will want to cook the carrots and the green beans together for a little bit before adding your corn and your potato, which will also be a cup each. After putting in your corn and your potatoes, you're going to let it cook for a little bit, and at this point you'll put around 1 teaspoon of salt. Now the chicken broth that we have made on the side, we used around 3.5 cups of water. 1/2 cup of the water should have been evaporated while it was boiling. If it doesn't, if you have 1/2 cup of broth left over, just put it in the freezer and you can use it for a different recipe later. But at this point, once you have the salt mixed into the veggies, you're going to put 2 cups of your chicken broth into the veggies, and then you're going to cover it and let it simmer for around 10 minutes. Simmer, make sure that you're simmering at a medium to low heat. While it's simmering, just take your chicken and shred it. The chicken was a little bit hot, so I did use a fork for most of it, and for the parts that wasn't so hot, I just shred it like that. You could shred it to very, very thin shreds, or you could have it where it's like cubed. I did it where it was enough that you could actually feel the chicken in your mouth. So at this point, if you have chicken already, like roasted chicken already in the fridge, and you're trying to use that leftover chicken for a chicken pot pie, you'll need around 3 cups of chicken for this recipe. Now after putting the chicken into the broth mixture, you are just going to check the the salt. So take a little bit of the broth and just taste it to see if it tastes right. Now the seasonings we'll be needing is 1/2 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of black pepper, and we're just going to mix that in. Once you have your seasonings put into the pot, make sure the heat is at medium to high heat, and at this point you are going to throw in some whipping cream. So I used around 1/4 of whipping cream, and then I also used a 1/2 cup of milk. Now because I was making this recipe without cornstarch, this is the reason why I use the whipping cream, because whipping cream gets thick over after boiling it for a while. I also put in the last cup of broth and just let it cook for a little bit. Now I left it at medium to high heat for around 10 minutes, continuously stirring it so that it does not get stuck at the bottom. And while it started boiling even more, I used 3 teaspoons of flour, and I basically mixed that in 1 teaspoon at a time just to help thicken it. While it was thickening, I put the oven on at 350 degrees, and once it was fully thickened, I put it into a tray. So as you can see, it's not extremely thick, but it's like a gravy like thick, where it's still liquidy. So at this point I did take some of the liquid part out and put it back into the pot. Now this step is really easy. What you do is just you put the filling at the bottom, and then you take a nice portion of puff pastry and put it on top. As you can see over here, it was a little bit liquidy for me, so what I did was I took the extra liquid out and put it back in the pot so I can make the individual pot pies on the side. Now because I was making this for the kids and also the adults, I did not put any chili flakes or anything like that, but later you will see that I put some in the individual pot pies. Now since the puff pastry sheets come in long rectangle shapes, I had to cut it to fit my tray. It was a little bit smaller than I expected it to be, but it did the job. So once you have your puff pastry on your filling, you are going to take an egg yolk, add a little bit of water in it, and basically brush it over the top. This helps it give a glazed look. My kids personally don't like this. I did do this just for the sake of the video. But sometimes some kids don't actually like the taste of the yolk on top. So if you are making it just special for kids, I would suggest not to put the yolk on top and just make it without it. But if you're making it for, of course, adults, put the yolk on top. It tastes really beautiful, really good with the yolk on top, and plus it gives that nice glazed look. These are the individuals, and what I did for this was I put some chili flakes on top. As you can see, one of them has a little bit less and the other one has a lot. Because I was using a circle pan for this small individual ones, I did have to use some scissors and cut it to size. The second one did have some little pieces of triangles in there just to basically cover everything. But once you have your individual pot pies covered, just do the same thing where you're brushing some egg yolk on top. And then you're going to put it in the oven at 350 degrees for around 18 minutes, or at least until the puff pastry looks cooked, which is around 18 to 20 minutes on 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And this is how the finished product looks. It's actually very tasteful. If you like this recipe, please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for more videos like this. If you have any suggestions on some types of recipes you would like to see, please leave it in the comments below and I will get back to you.